So at 5:04, I will call the Board of Finance to order. And the first item on the agenda is the agenda. Is there a motion?
I would move that we adopt the agenda.
Thank you, Councilor McGee. Is there a second?
Second.
Great, thank you, Councilor Barlow. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And the motion carries unanimously. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak at public forum? Once, going twice. All right, we will close the public forum and move on to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to adopt the consent agenda and take the actions.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor McGee. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. And that brings us to our first deliberative item, the BED Switch and Save Program Subgrant. And it looks like we have a couple of folks from BED who are going to talk about that.
Well, hello, good afternoon, councilors, Board of Finance. Darren Springer, General Manager with Chris Burns, Director of Energy Services. We have a great news item with the Switch and Save program. We have the opportunity to have initially 400,000 and potentially up to 500,000, depending on the statewide spending level, come to Burlington for this program. It's going to replace less efficient water heaters and fossil fuel water heaters in income qualified residences with more efficient heat pump water heaters. So save money, save on carbon, and it was designed in 2022 in the legislature. And it actually stemmed from an Energy Action Network working group. I had the chance to be a part of the effort back then and helping to design and advance the program, along with folks from Efficiency Vermont, BNRC, BPERG, a bunch of regional planning organizations and others. So we're really pleased to be able to be a sub-grantee of Efficiency Vermont for the program. Chris and his team have been working with Champlain Housing Trust and having some conversations as well with other housing organizations on ways that we can deploy the resource as quickly as possible. I think it is intended to be used in 2024. So we want to draw down as much of it as we can for Burlington residents and then potentially go after additional funding that may be available. So the $500,000 limit is to account for all known available funds and some potential additional funds that we might be able to access. And we're glad to answer any questions if the board has.
Excellent. Any questions, comments from the board? Yes, Mr. Barlow.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like with a $500,000 grant, how many conversions could you do? And do you think you'd be able to identify the folks who are eligible and sort of ask them rather than just make the program available?
Yes, it's a great question. And really 300,000 initially is going to go to the water heater change outs. We have another 100,000 that can support electric work that needs to happen, because the idea here is to make this no cost or minimal cost. So we were estimating with the 300,000 that we would have between 7,500 and 25 residences that we can switch over. And that's really the work that Chris and his team are doing with Champlain Housing Trust. It's possible we may be able to use the resource entirely working with partners and not have to wait on customers to come to us, that we can proactively work with area housing organizations, identify eligible residences, and get the dollars deployed that way. So that's our initial thinking. And if for some reason we were underutilizing those dollars, we would look for additional avenues for outreach. But I think we're hopeful we'll be able to utilize them that way. Yeah.
Any other questions? Are we, yes.
Sure, I'm happy to make the motion as recommended.
Is there a second?
So,
Looks like we lost Councilor Head for a moment. All those in favor, please say aye.
aye.
And any opposed, please say nay. And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I appreciate it.
Item number 2 on the deliberative agenda is the Church Street Marketplace capital improvement. Some exciting things happening here. Director Omaswari, why don't you give us a quick overview?
Sure, so, the Church Street Marketplace applied for and received a $1 million congressionally mandated grant through then Senator Leahy's office. We received the grant the grant actually hit the account in 2023. We then wrote and posted an RFP and engaged with an engineering firm to reevaluate a street assessment that we had already had done in 2017. Looking at wear and tear, pooling of stormwater, trip hazards, broken bricks, unevenness, frost heaves, etc. They gave us a full report and they also helped me prioritize some of those repairs that needed to be done. We then posted an RFP. We posted one RFP that ended at the end of December. Note, do not post RFPs at the holidays. Reposted it, and we received one bid. It fits into our budget. And it leaves us around 60,000 breathing room for any contingencies. It is Don Weston Excavating. Don Weston and his team have engaged in previous contracts through DPW. And I'm looking to move forward and sign that contract with them so that we can get them on the street as soon as the weather gets a little warmer and start getting some of that work done. We are being mindful of disruptions that may have on some of the businesses on the street. What we believe it's going to look like is swaths of bricks that will be lifted, the surface regraded, fresh bricks put down, so more section work, not complete block disruption.
Excellent. And I know Councillor Jang has been able to rejoin. Any questions or comments for Cara on this? Yes, Councillor McGee.
This is exciting. Let's work forward. Of the problem areas that which you say identified, is this covering all of the improvements, or some were prioritized?
Yeah, some were prioritized. There are some tree pits that might have to go into another batch if I can secure another grant. But really the priority was to make it more accessible. I've also had conversations with the AARP, et cetera, and we know that those trip hazards need to be addressed, as well as some of the intersections don't have what is now standard granite lines for the visually impaired that have bumps on them, so they know they're approaching an intersection, things of that sort. So those are in the priority list.
And the appendix that is attached to the item it has like the photos and everything.
Yes, exactly.
Is that listed in order of priority?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? We ready for a motion?
So moved.
Great, thank you, Councillor Jang. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, and good luck with that work. And now we get to have fun with DPW. Laura and Julia, thank you. Item number 3, authorization to execute the design contract for Cherry Street and raise the reconnecting downtown project. Give us a quick overview because we could never hear too much about this fun project.
Sure thing. Julie Stephanie, Public Works Engineer. Second. So we came to the Board of Finance about a month ago to accept the Raise Reconnecting Downtown grant, which is a $22 million grant that will support rebuilding Bank Street, Cherry Street, the 2 new sections of Pine Street and St. Paul Street, up to our Grade Street standards. This is also combined with the Lakeview Commercially Directed Spending funding that we were awarded and accepted in the fall of 2023. We have been working with VTrans and FHWA to put out a request for qualifications for a design engineer to work on the design work for this big project. Because of the scale and size and cost of this project, following VTrans procurement policies, we issued a request for qualifications rather than proposals, and received several statement of qualifications from 3 different design firms, and ultimately ended up selecting Stantec. They were involved in the previous version of this project, so had a lot of background info, which gave them a bit of a leg up in terms of efficiency. They also understood the schedule that we need to meet to not jeopardize our federal funding, and had all of the technical expertise that we needed to feel confident in awarding this contract to the firm. So they are breaking out their contract to work with our different grant funding sources, so that we can do all of our reporting for the various grants, and also there's some waterfront TIP funding supporting the Cherry Street local match. So we worked with them to kind of structure how they're going to invoice us so that we can make sure to track everything appropriately. So their total contract amount was $2,217,249, which is a lot, but did fit into our preliminary engineering budget that we had planned for. We're also asking to approve 10% contingency for any design contract amendments that may come up in the future.
Excellent. Any questions from the board? Yes, Councilor.
What's the timeline for design phase of the project?
So the construction funds, which means the design has to be complete and project has to be ready to go to construction, for Cherry Street has to happen by June of 2026, and for Bank Street and the rest of the project by June of 2027. So we'll be sprinting towards those goals while following all of the right federal processes with environmental permitting and the different plan development phases that we have.
Any other questions? Are we ready for a motion?
Okay, motion is recommended to the close.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor McGee. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 4.4, the Champlain Parkway FY24 project budget amendment and consultant contract amendment. Chief Engineer Baldwin and Director Spencer, who would like to kick it off?
Perfect. Okay, so Bill Baldwin, city engineer. As you all are aware, the Champlain Parkway has been underway, and actually this coming construction is going to be its 3rd season. For those who don't know, the initial phase of the Parkway really begins at Home Avenue north along new segment of the Parkway, crossing Flint Ave, Stairs Lane, and continuing on Lakeside Avenue, Pine Street to Kilburn Street. The final phase is the continuation of that, connecting both ends from Kilburn to Main Street, and then Home Avenue South to the 189 interchange. So this is our 3rd season. We are going to be restarting the project on April 15th. We anticipate that this project will be complete, at least the first phase will be complete by the August of this year. So getting back to the specific requests, you should have in the packet a number of communications. One is the base communication that speaks to very technical specific details. And then another subsequent memo from Director Spencer that gives more of a kind of a broader view of the project and its explanation and where we're at. For this particular request, we're looking to have two things: additional budget authorizations to complete the initial phase, and then additional contract authorizations for design, resident engineering, and services and project management. When I say that, these additional contract authorizations extend beyond, of course, this current phase. It is doing two things in this process. These contracts will account for design document preparation and bid docs for the final phase, and also it will include efforts to advance that project and support of the project. D&K with project management, WSP with resident engineering services, and CHA with construction admin. Construction admin is effectively, in simple terms, is the process of design engineering when they need to respond or answer questions that aren't available to respond to the resident engineer and the contractor. So those are kind of the fundamental asks. I would note specifically there is an additional $900,000 ask in bond proceeds for non-participating costs. But I think it's important that council members understand and know the difference between non-participating costs and local match obligations. So non-participating costs typically in this project are soil development, managing of soils that are developed soils, which means disposal of those soils and transport of those soils, landscaping, and various finishes and amenities that the state is not saying is eligible. So we have, let's see. And also just generally a budget authorizations to account for expenses that we didn't anticipate, but that are offset by other revenue sources. As an example, petroleum cleanup fund, water resource, and upgrading some of the water lines while we're doing that work, those types of things. So I think that in sum total explains what we're asking for today. Certainly available to answer any questions.
Excellent. I'm noting that the mayor joined us during that explanation. He is on Zoom, and I will open it up to any questions from the board. Yes, Councilor McGee.
I appreciate the additional information you will provide in the supplemental. I certainly recognize the tricky position we're in with state and federal partners wanting this project ahead expeditiously, and realizing that other enterprise projects fit into the timeline that we had hoped it would. And so, you know, I'm prepared to support this tonight, recognizing that and recognizing that this has been decades in the making. I'm not prepared to try to stand in the way of that in any way. So, and I look forward to supporting efforts to expedite as well as the state to join us in being committed to the enterprise project. And that is equally important and should be prioritized by the state as well. Complete, especially as we consider the south end of the Mission District, adding more traffic was envisioned when first did the project. So I'm curious to finally get to a question here. If you all
We're with you.
have done modeling with the South End Innovation District being contemplated?
Yes, so the Parkway, as we understand it, under Act 250 that predates these types of developments, had some, at least in my belief, conservative estimates in terms of traffic growth within the general community. Did not contemplate site-specific development projects like this. And so we are working very closely with the development team to understand what the consequences of their project is and whether or not there needs to be future, I guess, improvements that kind of attend to that challenge. But we're working pretty diligently with them to understand not only just in long term, but also more of how do they, when they sequence their construction and development, how will that fit within the context of this project and generally the street network itself. So there's a lot of work to be done still.
Just set up a meeting with them today to do the next round of traffic review from the master planning perspective. Before we see a development proposal, let's make sure we understand the assumptions and is there a path that a first phase or two could proceed with minor traffic adjustments while we work to finish the Parkway, while the REP is developed, and try to bring some kind of logic to how this all fits together, understanding constraints of the traffic in the South End. Thank you.
Excellent. Yes, Councilor Barlow.
Oh, I also appreciate an additional memo and spoke with Director Spencer today. My specific concerns were around the use of street capital, additional street capital for this, with all the Director Spencer, let me know if this was contingency of giving money and used. And also, I'd asked about the 900,000 capital bond proceeds, and my understanding now is that this is money that was allocated for local match, correct?
Generally, yes, not project specific, but generally.
And so it's consistent with the way the bond proceeds were envisioned. So those are my concerns, and I just wanted to sort of get them out there for anybody who happened to be listening to also understand. So I have received a couple of questions. So thank you for that. I don't have any additional questions, but I appreciate you giving me that time today.
I thank you for that, and I think one of the pieces that maybe we should give light to in the sense of things we've discussed that I think are important for the public to understand is that this funding today is for completing the initial construction contract. And that, as I put in the supplemental memo, that we will be looking for over $2 million of additional capital dollars to complete the final construction contract. And that is work that we'll need to do with FY 25 and 26, coordination with Ashley Parker, who's on the phone, so that when we bring the final construction contract for your review, that we can demonstrate how that local match is going to be paid.
So I also think it's important to understand that when we're packaging this final design, we anticipate final design will be potentially done either this month or next month, ready for bid. So you could potentially see award May, June of this year itself, or attempted award of this May, June. Yeah.
Any other questions? We ready for a motion?
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Mhm.
And it is included to the final construction contract. And it seems Champlain just mentioned $2 million. And are those $2 million a match to the federal government, or what are those?
Yes, those are the match funds to be able to draw down the state and federal dollars. The second phase is going to be around $37 million. And the city overall is only having to contribute around 8% of the total project expenses, which is quite a good deal compared to most normal state and federal projects.
and I know, thank you. And I think also another question as to why the federal government did not accept basically clearing up the road. And we understand that there was the soil was contaminated, right? And there are some funds that you, as part of your memos, that I could not understand a lot as to why the federal government could not take care of those as well, like such as.
I think policy decision on their part, that they have decided that, and the state's decided they are not assuming any soil liability in the future. So that's kind of where we landed on that.
It's consistent across various projects that we have worked with the state and federal government on. Similarly, the roundabout, even though that was a safety project where 100% of the construction was covered by state and federal partners, the non-participating expenses were still soil management that the city was on the hook to cover. For better or worse, Vermont has more stringent regulations than most states in the country. And I think part of the Fed's concern is that they don't want to have to pay the extra premium of all the regulation in the state of Vermont. So for better or worse, it is typical for municipalities to cover this cost.
I mean, I think we will not be here, but really congratulations and thank you for everything that you have done for this connected. Yeah, it will be a great thing for the city. Thank you. Thanks, Miro. Yeah.
Yes.
It's, there's no other discussion to make. I would recommend that I would move to take the action as recommended.
Excellent. Is there a second? Thank you,
And
Councilor.
second.
Is there any further conversation? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Great.
DPW.
Thank you.
And now we continue with DPW, but move to water. Let's discuss accepting some combined sewer outflow abatement ARPA grant funds. That's a lot of words. Director Lawyer, could you please give us a quick overview?
Sure. While I certainly have maintained that not enough ARPA funds are coming towards water resources, these next two items are examples of benefiting state ARPA dollars. And so as I described in my memo, we did a long-term control plan. As part of that long-term control plan, we identified a number of additional combined sewer overflow mitigation things that we need to do in the next coming decades. Unfortunately, the state did have some money that they allocated across all of the CSO communities, and we were able to secure almost $3.3 million that will go towards our combined sewer overflow projects. Right now, our highest priority project that we are working to advance is a substantially sized tank underneath Callahan Park, which would provide a storage area for the combined sewer overflows that currently go to the Pine Barge Canal into the lake, which is sort of our highest priority, both from a frequency standpoint, a volume standpoint, and also that it's going directly to the lake. Not that the other ones don't count, they do go to the river and the river goes to the lake, but they are much further away, they are much more infrequent and lower volume. This money is flexible if for some reason things stall with the tank. It is becoming difficult to try to figure out exactly what size tank with some of the other moving parts that are happening in the sewer shed. And with some of the hydraulic challenges that are in the pipe network on Pine Street, we do have other options. We have other things we can build, but right now we're keeping our fingers crossed that this money could be married with some of the remaining 2018 Clean Water Resiliency Bond money to perform the project, or possibly if we need a little extra money, we are considering a November 2024 bond and trying to augment those funds at that point.
Great. Questions from the board? Thank you, Megan. Yes.
I don't have a question, but just simply that these are on the deliberative agenda for this evening. And the reason they are is because they're large amounts of money. I can't imagine that too many people are overly concerned about accepting money. That tends to be a pretty good crowd pleaser around here. If there are counselors who feel, or the majority feel that it is something that's consent agenda, let's make that change. But in the meantime, I would make the motion as recommended.
Excellent. Is there a second? Thank you, Councilor McGee. Any discussion or questions? Yes, Dr. Spencer.
My only discussion, and I know it's unusual to have me weigh in on discussion, is just to say thank you for that, President Paul. I will be staying for the item immediately before it. I have made sure staff will not be in attendance, so that they can deal with other matters. So, but I am happy to stay on for the 5 or 10 minutes after the Parkway, if there's any interest in discussing this session.
If there is nothing else, we have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anyone who doesn't want money? Okay, and that item passed unanimously. Excellent. Thank you very much. And let's talk about ARPA grant funds number 2, please.
So as some of you may know, we are a MS4 community, it's a completely separate storm sewer system. We have a permit, gives us a whole bunch of extra things that we have to do compared to a lot of other Vermont communities. And one of those things, as you all are familiar, the lake is impaired due to phosphorus. We, through our integrated water quality plan, our plan is to tackle Burlington's full obligation through the implementation of tertiary treatment, an additional level of treatment at wastewater treatment plant. However, there is additional money out there to get more phosphorus, and why wouldn't we want to do that, particularly in watersheds that drain directly to public beaches. And so the high priority project that we've identified for this funding would be the retrofit of an old, sort of dilapidated stormwater pond near the Southwind neighborhood, and ideally turning that into a gravel wetland. Gravel wetlands have the highest phosphorus removal performance of any stormwater treatment practice, because that is directly feeding Blanchard or Oak Ledge Beach. That's our highest priority. As with the other grant, we have a number of other backup projects. This money is flexible enough because of it's a less of a nexus, but there is a nexus with doing combined sewer overflow projects and phosphorus reduction. So we have other things we can also do with this money should that Southwind project, not spend all of the money. We have some cost estimates in the memo, but we all know the world of cost estimates is all over the place. So it's possible we might draw down more of it than identified in the memo, but should we do that, we have some other projects that we can tackle with these funds. So thank you, state, for thinking of water resources when handing out these money packets.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Oh, and we're meeting the match. Yeah, there is a 20% match, but this is a unique opportunity in which we're able to leverage money that we have pulled down that we're leveraging from private entities. So the project that you all approved, which was a P3, a public-private partnership with Pomerleau, CHT, to build a gravel wetland, gravel wetlands, at the Price Chopper shopping mall. That money and all of the money that the private folks are spending on that counts as our leverage for this project. So we don't even have to put in additional city dollars, which is even pretty better. Awesome.
Love it. Are we ready for a motion or any questions? Yes, Councilor McGee.
Very happy to make the motion.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from President Paul. Last call. Chapin, anything to add?
And a few words tonight.
Excellent. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and the motion passes unanimously. And that brings us to adjournment, and seeing no further business, we will adjourn at 5:38. Leaving us with a few minutes before city council. In a rare move, we have until 6:15, but don't be late. We'll see you upstairs in Contoys, and if you are on Zoom, you can just stay here. Thank you.
Because why would you do?
So.